This is the Rolling with Tay podcast. I'm your host, Tasia, aka Tay, and this is episode 7, and I have Caleb Smith. Caleb is a certified SkateIA instructor, an aggressive skater, a ultra skater. He'll explain more. Caleb is also sponsored by rollerblading framing company Wish, FR Skates, solar backpack company Melio Designs, and bigwheelblading.com. Welcome to the podcast, Caleb.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. I'm super interested in what ultra skating is and how you got started into it. But first, take us to the beginning and what sparked your interest in skating.
So when I was 5, my mother was in college, and this was in the mid-90s. Rollerblading was really huge. My mom got a pair of rollerblades. She got me a pair of rollerblades. I still remember the first time I put them on. I just absolutely fell in love and just was never able to stop skating. And then obviously, as I got older, the different disciplines of skating started to show. And I found aggressive skating, which I did for a really long time in my career, leading up until where I'm at now, which is ultra skating. So I've kind of I started when I was 5 and I just could never stop.
Wow. 5 years old. That's pretty cool. And your mom skated as well and got you into it. Yeah.
Yeah, she skated. All my siblings, I have 5 siblings, 3 sisters and 2 brothers, and they all gave it a try over the years, which was pretty funny. But I'm the only one that ever stuck with it.
That's pretty cool. Okay, so can you explain what ultra skating is and how you got into it?
Yes. So the best way I've come to describe ultra skating is it's parallel to ultra running. Obviously, it's skating. And usually the way I define it is it's any distance over 26 miles, which is a standard marathon, done in consecutive days. Mm-hmm. It's kind of, I kind of just let the term ultra describe it. I'm often doing really big distances and I'm stacking them day after day. So I'll do, a 5-day skate where I'm trying to cover 500 miles by myself. And I'm skating down highways, frontage roads, trails, any sort of concrete that I can use to get me from one destination to another. It's like an endurance sport. It's just like ultra running, but I'm on skates and right now I'm generally by myself.
Wow. Okay, so with these trips, right?
Yes.
How much gear do you take?
Well, before I get to gear, I guess I forgot to answer the other part of the first question, how I got into ultra skating.
Yes.
So I grew up trick skating, obviously, doing aggressive skating, skate parks, stuff like that. And as I got into my mid-20s, a lot of my friends were skating less. We were all kind of going off into different career directions, starting families and stuff. And I was skating by myself more often. And when you're doing aggressive skating, it's not as fun by yourself because it's a high-risk sport. It's kind of a community sport. We're all kind of pushing each other. So by yourself, it's not as fun. And so I started skating for fitness just by myself. And I really was like, whoa, I kind of forgot what this is like. I've been doing tricks for so long. I forgot what just skating is like. And I started to fall in love with it. And I'm from Iowa, which is a huge cycling state. Mm-hmm. And there's an event, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, called RAGBRAI.
Oh, no, I haven't.
RAGBRAI is the Register's annual Great Bicycle Ride across Iowa. 6 years ago, my partner at the time was a cyclist, right when I first started distance skating. Mm-hmm. So at this point, I was just skating around town, like 10 miles at a time, 20 miles maybe that seemed really crazy to me to skate 20 miles. I would think that was a crazy workout. My partner says, oh, I think I'm going to ride on RAGBRAI this year, this bicycle ride across the state of Iowa. It's a 7-day ride from one side of Iowa to the other. And it's basically this huge moving party of 10 to 20,000 cyclists. It's a pretty crazy event, and it just moves across Iowa, going through all these small towns, and you get to see every little aspect of Iowa life. And it's a really cool event. She said she wanted to ride it, and I said, it would be crazy if I tried it on skates.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing you know, I'm at Ragbri on skates, and I am the lone skater amongst 20,000 cyclists. And that was a really crazy experience for me. And then after that event, I just had this kind of hunger where I said, I really want to skate a really far distance now. I really want to see how far I can push this and play with it. And that's before I was calling it ultra skating. That's before I was, doing the really large distances. But it started me on that hunger for the kind of endurance, the love of endurance, and all the great things that you get out of that kind of exercise and activity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was going to ask you, were you the only one on skates there?
I was, yes. I have done Ragbri consecutively since then. Last year would have been my 5th Ragbri, except for they canceled in 2020. The event's been going on for, I want to say 55 years, maybe.
Wow.
It's the one of the largest and longest running cycling events in the world. It's pretty cool. If you're a cyclist, I would definitely recommend checking it out.
Oh.
And you'll meet, obviously you're going to meet people from all over the world, and they all, you're just skating, you're just going across Iowa. So you have all day to conversate with people, from all over the world, and you hear fascinating stories, and it's always a really good time.
Oh.
I got on a tangent.
No. Listen, you're talking to a cyclist here, so I'm yes, I'm definitely gonna look into this.
But yeah, so I was alone the first 2 years, and then on my second Ragbri, the very last day, my partner who I'm currently with joined me. She joined me for our first date, and it was a 70-mile skate, and it was a pretty crazy first date. I've definitely never had one like that. But now she's done Ragbri as well with me. So the next year she joined me. Sonic, who you mentioned earlier, joined me. Yeah. And that's kind of when me and Sonic had known each other for a couple years, but we really became close friends on our first Ragbri. Mm-hmm. And then last year, him, his partner, 2 other skaters joined my partner and I. So there are 6 skaters total. So it's kind of fun because now when I go back to Ragbri, there's so many thousands of people that you kind of, you get lost in the crowd. Mm-hmm. But it's really fun because everybody kind of knows me as Rollerblade Guy, and every year I show up with a few more skaters, and it's getting kind of fun.
Nice. That's super dope. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna look into it. Like I said, with me being a cyclist, I don't know about putting on skates and skating in it just yet. But wow, and your first date. Wow, that's
yeah, it was pretty wild.
I could imagine. So when you go on your ultra skating trips, what type of gear do you take?
So the gear has been one of the biggest. There's been so many learning curves to ultra skating because obviously there's been people in the past before really large distance skates. Maybe someone skated across the US to set a record. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of charity skates done, but there's nobody that's done it reoccurring. Mm-hmm. So when I sort of started searching for gear and stuff, like, what skaters were using, it's really hard to find the best gear. It seemed like everybody kind of worked with what they had at the time. So the last 5 years, I've just been sort of working through different pieces of gear to kind of find what works best for ultra skating. And obviously, the lightest weight gear I can find is the best option. I'm doing all of this. I'm also a cook at a restaurant, so I do all of my ultra skating on a cook's budget. So, I'm always trying to optimize what I have and do the best. But yeah, my gear, It kind of varies depending on how big the ultra is.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a you know a really long distance ultra, before I used to be carrying a larger backpack and I'd carry camping, all sorts of camping gear and stuff. But every time I've done an ultra, I've skated such a long distance and I carry all this weight. And one thing I learned is everything you carry gets heavier and
Mm-hmm.
heavier and heavier.
Yep.
So I would say I'm not using this or I'm barely using that. What would happen if I take it out of my gear bag next time and just have to fend without it?
Mm-hmm.
And I've kind of done that, and it's been, at times a really wild journey, but I've got my gear selection down pretty good. I'm carrying usually 10 pounds or less of gear.
Okay.
I got an ultralight tent, a one-man tube tent, um, ultralight sleeping bag. I have a serape that I like to carry with me. It's kind of like a blanket almost, and that it's heavier. It's not ultralight, but it's something I picked up on one of my travels. So I generally like to carry that with me because it's like sentimental, and it also works great as a sleeping pad. So I don't carry a sleeping pad really. My clothing, I've gotten whittled down to like, 3 pairs of like brief liners. I've got a pair of short shorts, and then I generally carry like 6 pairs of socks. I like to have two
Yeah.
pairs a day for 3 days before I got to do laundry. So I'm doing laundry sometimes on these ultras. A lot of the times I'm camping, so I'll just
Mm-hmm.
wash my gear at the campsite and just hang it to dry overnight. Couple water bottles. I've got a brick. That's actually the heaviest thing I carry, is a little anchor brick that
Mm-hmm.
holds 96 hours of charge because I got to charge my watch and my phone.
Yeah.
And that's about it. I mean, I've whittled down my gear to the last 5 ultras I've done. I've just gotten it down to next to nothing, which has been pretty fun. It's always fun when you're experimenting with gear.
Yeah. All right, cool. So you answered my next question. You typically camp versus sleeping in hotels.
I do. There's definitely been times where I've gotten hotels,
Mm-hmm.
emergency situations.
Mm-hmm.
The documentary you were mentioning earlier, Ultra, where I skated down Highway 1, I actually got really sick in the middle of that skate. The
Mm.
middle of the week, I got like, I don't know if it was dehydration or what, but I was really, really just unable to skate. And I had to pull over in this town, get a hotel room, and just, I kept jumping in and out of cold baths and trying to just
Mm.
like, so in a rare occasion I get a hotel, but no, I try to camp the majority of the time. I really love camping. That's also another, what I would say defines an ultra skate.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are events, there's some ultra marathons that are on closed tracks where it's like a 24-hour skating marathon. And there's some things like that in the world that are still pretty big, but there's nobody that's going out and kind of distance skating, out in nature. And that's one aspect that makes it really, really enjoyable. It's all the
Mm-hmm.
nature, the camping. Even during the day when you're on the road, oftentimes I'm out in the country. And so I'm just skating through the countryside, and it's a really beautiful experience. Some of my ultras, I end up doing a lot of wild camping, which was kind of made me nervous at first, but I've gotten, I've met so many people on the road now that say, oh yeah, this is my land. Feel free to camp on it. Like, people
Okay.
are always welcome for this. And that's been kind of fun. But yeah, no, I love camping. I try to camp on all my ultras.
Okay, that's cool. You're combining two things that you love.
Yeah. And as far as the gear goes, that was the biggest thing, is
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get my gear down to a point where I'm entirely self-sufficient. I don't need any support vehicle or anybody helping me. I can just carry all the gear I need and make it whichever distance.
Yeah.
So camping adds a challenge, but also adds so many benefits to it.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you have a set amount of miles that you want to complete each day?
Um, not not too often. What I generally do now is when I build an ultra skate, I look at a map and I try to find either where I think I'm camping or cities I'd like to visit, and I
Mm.
try to kind of build the distance of each day and I've learned how many days I can do high distances before I need a shorter day. So maybe I'll do 2 60-mile days and then a 40-mile day. But generally, I like to do at least 30 miles or more in a day. I think that's really good. If I can start out with a medium day, like a 45-mile day on an ultra, and then I'll try to, bring the numbers real high and then bring it back down at the end to where the last day is a 30-mile day, then it's, that's kind of a nice thing to do. But generally anything over 30 miles.
Okay. All right, cool. So, what is the Midwest Ultra Series?
So the Midwest Ultra Series was my project in 2021. I'm actually really excited to talk about this. I just finished in November, and I haven't really spoken to anybody about it, and I've just been sort of digesting it. So the Midwest Ultra Series started, it was my plan last year to sort of showcase the Midwest, because a lot of my ultra skates, I've traveled to places like Highway 1, or other, what people would think are picturesque parts of the country. And when most people think of the Midwest, they think it's really boring and really flat. And so I wanted to take an opportunity to showcase the Midwest. But also, like, there were so many different things that kind of came together to create the Midwest Ultra Series. But basically what it was my plan was to skate from my house in the capital city of Des Moines, Iowa, to all the surrounding Midwestern capital cities. So I would leave from my front door and skate by myself unsupported to a capital city. So in May, I skated from Des Moines, Iowa in March, I skated from Des Moines, Iowa to Kansas City, Missouri. A little less than 300 miles. I did it in 5 days. And I sort of did that. I skated to Omaha, Nebraska, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Chicago, Illinois, and St. Louis, Missouri.
Nice.
So it was pretty cool. It was, I have friends in all of those cities, so it was really fun for me I would leave from my house and I would just start skating, and I would say, hey, you want to hang out Saturday? I'm going to be in town. And they'd say, how are you getting here? I say, I'm skating. I'll be there in a couple days. So that's been kind of fun. But yeah, I just also, in 2020 and 2021, I wasn't sure how much traveling. Obviously 2020, I didn't travel after the pandemic started. In 2021, I wasn't sure what events were going to be happening and if traveling would be a thing. So I designed my whole series to basically be in the Midwest. I would never have to travel. I could just skate. I would skate to where I would, my destination city, and then my partner would come down to the city and stay for a couple of days, or she'd join me sometimes in some of the camping. We'd stay at state parks. She'd drive in the night and meet me in the campsite and camp for the night. No, it was just a really beautiful way to sort of see the Midwest, and it was really enjoyable. And I document the whole thing on my Facebook and my Instagram. I sort of do the live stories and a lot of things like that. But yeah, it was wild. I ended up this. I don't know if you want me to do the stats or what.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
So in March, I skated to Kansas City, which was a little less than 300 miles. I did Des Moines to Omaha in 3 days, which was 185 miles. And I had a friend join me on that one, which was really cool experience because I haven't had a lot of people join me on sort of the more wild ultras I do that are unsupported. So that was a really cool opportunity. And then let's see, June, I actually went to Georgia and I skated across the state of Georgia in a cycling event called Bragg.
Wow. Which
was really an incredible experience. It thunderstormed the entire week, every day. There was about 1,000 cyclists on it. And then I was, again, the only rollerblader. But it was incredible. It was one of the most enjoyable weeks of my year. Georgia was so lush and beautiful. It was just so amazing. And it's sort of like RAGBRAI, but obviously on a much smaller scale. And they had the whole infrastructure set up with support stands and, campsites predetermined and everything. And that was a really cool event. So that's another one I recommend to cyclists. And it's always in June. It's called Bragg Bicycle Ride Across Georgia. And then the next month I did Ragbri in July. August, I skated from my front door to Minneapolis, Minnesota for Camp SkateIA. And I got my skate park instructor certification.
Hey, congrats.
Thank you. It was really fun because a lot of people traveled from all over the country to go to the camp, and I showed up having skated there. It's kind of fun, and it's given me a really absurd and interesting perspective on life, if that makes sense. Because I sort of, I grew up in Central Illinois, so obviously I skated from Des Moines to Minneapolis, and then my next skate was from Des Moines to Chicago. But I sort of wanted to zigzag through Central Illinois, visit my family in Peoria, Illinois, and everything. And I've driven back and forth this drive, over the last 10 years of my life. I've done this 250 miles to Central Illinois so many times. And it was so strange to skate the whole thing because, it's just like, it was so different. And I was just so present for every moment of everything that it took to get there. And it made me have a stronger appreciation, one, for how everything's set up, the ease at which we're all allowed to travel. I think that's something a lot of people take for granted. But also, it's just, I don't know, it's given me this strange perspective on distance, how close things really are, and how we tend to think things are further, but they're really not that far. So yeah, I skated from my house to Peoria and then to Chicago. And then the last one was to St. Louis, which I did in the first week of November. I kind of pushed it to after Halloween, which made it a little difficult because it was really cold and rainy, which definitely added a lot of difficulty to it. And then my final skate of the year was I went out to Las Vegas and I skated to Death Valley, which was kind of I called it the dessert to my ultra skating year. Like I did all the things I really wanted to accomplish in this Death Valley thing. I just really had this desire to go there and skate. So I skated from Las Vegas to Death Valley, which was really incredible. It was so incredible.
Wow, I can imagine. And I think I saw a couple photos and videos on your Instagram page.
Yeah. It was just surreal. I mean, I landed in Las Vegas and immediately left the airport and put my skates on and just started skating out of town. And honestly, it was really beautiful. The highway that I was on had a great shoulder for cyclists, and it was brand new asphalt. So the first 2 days I had a shoulder and it was really nice. I did have to do almost a 6,000 foot climb the first day, which is there was not a lot of shade. That's the one thing that it was in the 70s and 80s. So it didn't feel that bad, but there was no shade. So, and I kept trying to explain that to people. They're like, oh, the temperature doesn't seem bad. And I'm like, yeah, but I've been in the sun for 8 hours. But no, it was so beautiful. I mean, I was basically surrounded by mountains for 4 days straight. And as I made my way into Death Valley, it was just aside from the periodic traffic that would pass me, it was just so quiet out there. It's really quiet. And that's the whole summer I skated through the Midwest, and it was, windy, and there's farm equipment passing all the time and semis. And it was really a lot of traffic, which was, kind of a crazier part of ultra skating that I'll talk about that more. But yeah, out in Death Valley, it was so quiet. And that was one thing that I think really made it a sweet end to my Midwest Ultra series.
Nice. What would you say is the most challenging part of the series?
I would say that's split between two things. Obviously, the first would be weather. Yeah. Weather is a huge challenge. Obviously, I hope for always sunny days, but even then, with the sun, it can get super hot. Here in the Midwest, we definitely had a hot summer. But wind, rain, everything, just weather can definitely make an ultra skate way more difficult. Especially, when I plan the Midwest Ultra Series, I try to plan my routes as best I can. But I don't go pre-drive them or anything. I just use Google Maps, Google Earth, and I sort of build a route. So when I'm out on the route, I have no idea what the pavement's going to be like, what the climbs and the hills are going to be like. And then suddenly, if it's windy or raining, that can make, that can make it an extreme challenge. The very first day of my first skate of the Midwest Ultra Series, when I was on my way to Kansas City, I left at 6 a.m. and I was immediately skating into 25-mile-an-hour headwinds.
Ooh.
And at that point, I'm basically like barely skating. I'm skating 3 to 5 miles an hour, which, like, on that being the first day of the ultra skate, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. This is it. Like, and then I immediately was skating into this headwind, and I only skated 40 miles that day, and it took me almost 8 hours, which is like, I should be able to do 40 miles in, 3 hours or less.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it becomes a physical battle, but also a mental battle, because, at moments you can feel totally silly when you're trying to do this extreme feat, but you're only skating 3 miles an hour. You're like, man, I gotta look so silly right now to anybody who's looking. But, you keep going and you keep going, and you get to the end, and you look back on everything. When I got to the end of that first skate, I looked back on that windy day and everything else that followed. And I found it always balances out. That's the one beautiful part of ultra skating is no matter how difficult the weather is or the terrain, it always seems to find a balance, or at least I seem to find an appreciation for those things. So weather climate is one of the biggest challenges. And then also, I was really ambitious when I designed this series. And I planned an ultra every month, and I found it was very difficult because I work as a cook in a restaurant. I was trying to balance working 3 weeks, being gone for a week to do an ultra, coming back. Where it was really difficult balancing all that and training and sort of maintaining a relaxed life. It was definitely near the end. I was like, it seemed like I would finish an ultra and then I'd only have a couple days before the next one, and my mind and body were like needed more time to recuperate.
Yeah.
But it was really fun.
I can imagine. I did this challenge a few weeks ago on my bike, and like every day, like I can ride the century, I can do the 100 miles, but every day I was doing like 40, 60, another 40, and I'm like, damn, I need to rest. let me take a day off, so I can just imagine on skates, and then now you're coming back to work, and then you gotta get ready for the next one.
Yeah.
I can imagine. So can you share some more stories, like when you're skating, do people like stop by, like as they're driving, do they stop and ask you questions? Do you find that people are genuinely nice, or are they honking at you? Like,
I would say 98 98.5% of the time people are really nice, maybe even 99%. There's always that, like, I'd say on every ultra skate I'd probably get 2 or 3 people that would honk at me and sort of shake their fist and give me an angry face and seem confused at what I was doing.
yes.
The people that talk to me, that pull over and talk to me, that are friendly, also are confused, and they say, what the heck? I've never seen anything like this. My skates that I'm doing this on don't look like your typical rollerblades. My wheels are 125 millimeter each, and I have 3 wheels on each skate. So it's like a huge looking skate.
Yeah.
And so when people see that, they haven't, rollerblading kind of hasn't been as popular for the last 15 years. So when they see wheels like that, what the heck? And then when they see me skating down the highway, I'm already, just under 6 foot. So with my skates on, I'm, nearly 6'5", 6'6". So I'm a huge guy skating down the side of a highway. So a lot of people, they do pull over. You can tell when a honk is a good honk versus a bad honk, and you'll see them giving me a thumbs up. People, I like to pull over and take photos of me, which has been a really fun experience. But yeah, when I'm traveling into cities, like, everyone has been really positive about it. People think it's really cool. I've only had a couple bad experiences where in And again, it's generally when the people seemed confused, they didn't understand what I was doing, so they just automatically got angry. And I even had a conversation with one guy and explained to him what I was doing. And he, sort of, you know, cooled off and was like, okay, be safe, have a good day. But it's an interesting thing because people don't see that. I know it's got to be really strange to see someone rollerblading down the highway on a place you've driven every day for the last 20 years and you've never seen anything like that. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I can admit I would have like, hey, I'll do a double take, but then I'd get like really happy because I'm like, what?
Yeah, that is cool. That's one of the things that actually really helps me when I'm ultra skating is when I see someone and their reaction is so positive and they're so happy, or they'll slow down, roll their window down, start recording and cheering for me. Like, that's really cool. And that gets me hyped up because it's like, you can feel that positive energy.
Yeah. I would definitely be one of those people like, can I take a picture of you? This is so great. Like, wow. Like, you should see me now. I'm smiling now just thinking about it. Like, oh my gosh, if I ever see you on the side of the highway, I'm jumping out. Wow, that's so cool.
It's definitely, it's led to some cool experiences. I've had people pull over and offer me places to crash. One time I was skating across Pennsylvania and a woman pulled over. She asked where I was going and she ended up living on a farm, not 10 miles from where I was going. So her and her husband hosted me on their farm. I got to tour their whole farm. She was a falconer. So she had a pet hawk. Mm-hmm. And they had horses and goats and all that. So I got to hang out on this farm, and do a cookout with them. And experiences like that, are like totally, you don't get those opportunities that often in life where you just meet a random stranger and they say, whoa, like, obviously you're doing something crazy. So I don't know why people tend to trust me because I'm doing this ultra skating, because I would think that I look extra crazy. But people tend to be, the ones that are really happy about it, they're really open. And I've had so many people invite me to crash at their house, offer me shower and dinner. And that's always really nice. And I've made a lot of friends that I'm obviously going to have for the rest of my life, which is cool. Mm-hmm. It's just been, man, where do I start? Let's see. Man, so in Death Valley, this is one of my more recent stories. This one was so awesome. The third day of Death Valley skate, I skated to this campsite it's right before you actually get into the Death Valley National Park area. Mm-hmm. And it's an abandoned gold town. And so there used to be all these trailers and properties there, but now it's just a bunch of slabs and you can camp there for free. So I skated there and I had to carry my food and water because there was obviously that night there wasn't anything there. It's just abandoned. So I had to carry my food and water for that day and the next morning so I could get to Death Valley. And when I got to this campsite, there was only one camping trailer out there on this slab. And I sort of looked around for a while and I didn't really want to camp on a slab. So I hiked up this cliff and I set my tent up on this cliff. And it was just like really just beautiful. I mean, I watched the sunset. This was just last November when we had that lunar eclipse. Mm-hmm. So that night I was on the cliff, we had the lunar eclipse and my tent is like an all mesh tent. So I just got to lay underneath the lunar eclipse and it was like so beautiful and just so quiet. And then the next morning when I woke up, I packed all my gear up. And as I was hiking down the little cliff that I had climbed, the guy from the only camper there had rode his 4-wheeler over to meet me. And he was he was 79 years old. So I could tell he was an older man. And he said, hey, are you interested in coffee? And I said, heck yeah. So go back over to his camper. He makes coffee and breakfast. This guy just is the coolest guy. He is a retired jazz musician who is just traveling the country and touring just all the beautiful parts of the country. He had this little 3-wheeled motorcycle that he would drive around all the state parks and everything. What? And so he's like, makes me this awesome cup of French press, just like delicious coffee. We're eating fresh blueberries. And he's just like, hey, there's this cool lookout I can drive you to if you want. And then you can skate down the hill. And I was like, sure. So we hop on this guy's motorcycle. I bring my skates. I leave my gear in his camper. We drive to the top of this view, Dante's View, that overlooks all of Death Valley. It was
Mm.
so beautiful. And it was definitely like, it was out of the way of the path I was taking. So I
Mm-hmm.
probably wouldn't have gotten the chance to go there. So he brings me all the way there. He sort of hangs out. He can't walk very well because he keeps falling on his side, and his hip and everything's messed up. That's
Mm.
sort of why he's riding around on his bike. And so he sort of hangs out there, and I hike around and I look around for a minute, and then we go back and I skate down this huge, I want to say it was about 3,000 feet
Mm.
descent.
Mm.
And he follows me on his motorcycle, and I didn't have any gear, so it was really cool. I ended up going 46 miles an hour,
What?
which is, yeah, it was sick. And, I just cruised all the way down this massive hill, all the way to the bottom. It's probably like 4 or 5 minute descent, which is like, doesn't sound like a lot of time, but when you're descending down a hill really fast, like
Yes.
4 or
Yes.
5 minutes is a really long time. And you're like,
It is.
it's a rush. So then we go back to the camper, and then he's like, you want to get lunch? So, we drive to this nearby town and get lunch. And then we go back to the camper, and he says, if you want, I can carry your gear down in the Death Valley so you can descend down in the Death Valley without your gear. So I've been carrying this backpack for the last 3.5 days, and it's just like, this is, an opportunity I didn't think I'd have. So as we finish lunch and we drive back to the camper, right, as I am putting my skates on and we're loading my gear onto his bike, a pack of cyclists passes by our campsite. There's 20 cyclists headed towards Death Valley. So I got to jump on the road into Death Valley. It was, 20 miles of descent, and it was brand new pavement.
Woo.
And I jumped on with a group of cyclists and just got to cruise with them down this descent into Death Valley. And we had my friend Jim behind us on the motorcycle with his hazards on, so the traffic was not giving us any trouble. And it was just like, all these things came together in this moment to give me this crazy, unique experience that, like, I don't want to say I'll never have an experience like that again, because obviously ultra skating always surprises me, but it was so awesome. And I skated down into the campground, and all the cyclists were there, and they were like, wow, that was so crazy. And we're all cheering.
That is so dope. Wow.
Yeah. And then, Jim followed me all the way to my campsite, and I set up my campsite in the middle of Death Valley at this campground. And it was cool. It was sort of like I became best friends with this guy who's 80 years old, jazz player, never seen ultra skating in his life, but he thought it was cool. And he was just like, followed me around for a whole day of my life while I just got to skate. And it was so cool. And I hopefully I get to run into Jim again. We exchange information, and I have so many friends like that where I've just met them and had unique experiences. And the couple that I visited out in Pennsylvania, I actually went back again 2 years later to visit them.
Wow.
And my partner came out, and we went out and had dinner with them. It was so cool. So it's like, people that aren't skaters and might not ever skate, I've still made best friends because of ultra skating. And it's just like, I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah. That's what it's about.
Definitely.
The experiences. Oh man, that is so cool. Like, I'm just like, you make me want to be an ultra skater. It's like, I want to do that now. Wow, that is so cool. Do you have any advice for skaters that want to begin ultra skating?
Yes. So obviously there's a lot of intricacies to ultra skating. I mean, you're skating on open highways, so it's extreme high risk. There's a lot of danger. Sometimes there's no shoulder, so you're on the road. And when there's traffic, that's of super serious risk that I try to explain to anybody. I've been doing this now for 5 years, and I've definitely been in some pretty hazardous situations, but I've always maintained, 100% awareness. Never ever think that, like, I make sure that I never allow myself to think I'm ahead of the traffic in some way, or I think I can, even if I'm tired and I think maybe I'll stay on the road for an extra second, this car, will go around me. I never do that. I always play safe with traffic because, obviously there's not really anybody ultra skating, but there's a lot of cyclists out there that have been, tragically taken by traffic accidents. And I don't want that to happen to me, and I obviously wouldn't want that to happen to anybody that's going to try ultra skating. So my first thing that I really would say is like it's a really serious thing that goes beyond skating. So you want to make sure you're a good skater. Like, attaining good skating skills, the ability to like handle yourself on rough pavement in tight situations, good control and maneuverability are like a must have. It's not, I wouldn't say ultra skating is a beginner sport. It's something that you get into as you already are good at skating. So first things first, get good maneuverability and skills at skating so that you can be comfortable and safe in those kind of environments. And then, start collecting the right kind of gear. And then it's an endurance activity. So, maintaining good physical health really helps when you're ultra skating.
Do you do any like exercises? Do you have like any specific workouts that you do?
I am a firm believer in yoga. I really like to do a lot of yoga. One, it is a strength enhancing activity. I think a lot of people don't really think of it that way. They think it's just like stretching and ouch. But once you get into it and you're doing it for a while, it really helps with flexibility, and it does help with strength, especially like the little areas like my knees and ankles and everything that I use when I'm skating. So yoga is one of the big things. And then, the really fun thing about skating is my training for skating is skating.
Yeah.
So I really love skating around town. I've definitely grown to like put exercises into my skates to kind of turn them into workouts. So I'll do a lot of like mountain climbers and push-ups and sit-ups and things like that while I'm out on the skate. But aside from that, just general healthy lifestyle, the yoga, the stretching, just making sure I take care of my body. Not a ton of weightlifting. I'm trying to get into weightlifting to see if that can help me skate any further. But, yoga is something that I really would recommend to a lot of skaters and to anybody generally.
Yeah, I'm going to try yoga.
Do you do any yoga?
I do not.
But you gotta do it. If there's any advice I could give to myself like 10 years ago, I would say start yoga, please. Because after I started doing it, like I couldn't believe that I hadn't done it before. It's just, it makes your body, it makes everything in life easier, mentally, physically. Get into the yoga, trust me.
All right, I'm getting into the yoga. Do you have any skating goals for 2022? Are you going to start a new project?
I do. I have this project that I'm working on. I have a name for it, but I don't know if that's the name it's going to stay with. So I'm keeping it secret.
Gotcha.
But I really want to do a 1,000 mile unsupported ultra skate. So basically the project I'm setting up this year is I'm giving myself 3 different opportunities to try to achieve that. And my goal is just similar style to the Midwest Ultra Series, all of my own gear, unsupported, without a follow vehicle or anything. I want to try to cover a 1,000 mile distance. And the goal would obviously be to do that in a pretty quick time span. So yeah, that's my main goal. I did get my certification for the skate park skating. Here in Des Moines, Iowa, we just opened the largest outdoor skate park in the U.S.
Wow.
And it's 5 minutes away from my house.
Oh, my gosh.
So I've been trying to set things up to start teaching. So hopefully by spring and summer, I will be teaching full time, and I can sort of step a little bit away from the kitchen, which will be nice.
Nice.
Because then I get to do what I love all the time, which would be really cool.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I believe you will accomplish your main goal. I believe that already.
Thank you.
As well as the teaching at the skate park. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Last question. What's the most enjoyable thing about skating to you?
To me, I've been asked this question a lot, and I feel like the word freedom is always the first word that comes to mind.
Yes.
Skating has brought me a lot of freedom from, in the physical world. It gives me the freedom of being able to get out and go almost anywhere. And now I'm at a point where I'm proving I can go pretty far.
Yes.
Which is fun, but also it's given me a freedom of mind that I don't know. I can't say how I would have achieved the freedom of mind I have without skating. It's brought me so many unique experiences. It's brought me into so many problems that I had to solve. Introduced me to so many people, opportunities, and sort of opened my mind in a lot of ways. So, skating it's like total freedom from yourself, but also freedom from everything, if that makes sense. That's how it's been for me. And I really love it. And, generally when I see people skate and they know what they're, when they, even new skaters, when they're given a hand and they know what they're doing, I see the same smile on their face that I'm like, that's it. That's that feeling of freedom that and now that I'm so far and I've been skating for 27 years now, I've seen that smile on so many faces that it's like, I know it's real. It's just got this magic to it. It's just so much fun.
Yeah. So authentic. Like, I agree. I say this all the time when I ask people like anything about cycling or skating and they mention freedom. I'm like, I'm there with you.
Heck yeah.
Any last words?
None that come to mind other than, thank you. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about ultra skating. I've been doing this for, almost 6 years of my skating career now. I've been just ultra skating. And sometimes I feel like I'm screaming into a void, or maybe I'm just, in the skating world or in the world of sports in general. Sometimes I feel like I'm totally alone. And so when people say, whoa, what the heck is ultra skating? Talk to me about it. Like, I'm always thankful for anybody that wants to hear about it, because it is, such an incredible, thing. It's been such an incredible experience. And I'm like, I want to share it with other people, and I would like to see other people ultra skating. So thank you for talking to me about it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Listen, I am here for it. I'm looking forward to seeing it grow. Looking forward to seeing your next projects. I'm even if I don't do it, like I'm gonna do a marathon. I plan to do a marathon this year, but even if I don't go past that, I'm gonna watch your stories. Look at your videos.
Thank you.
I'm rooting for you. Anybody that's doing this, I'm like, yes. Like, and I'm gonna talk, like, right before we started, I was telling someone about this. I was like, I'm gonna tell everybody.
Like, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for being a guest.
It's my pleasure.
On my podcast, and this is the Rolling with Tay podcast. I'm your host, Tasia, aka Tay, and thanks for listening. Want more Rolling with Tay podcast? Well, follow on Instagram and Twitter at Rolling with Tay. Visit the blog rollingwithtay.wordpress.com for more content, and be sure to sign up for the monthly newsletter. And lastly, subscribe to the YouTube channel Rolling with Tay.